Rain fell hard over the broken streets of Erebos 4, a colony city forgotten by the galaxy. Neon signs flickered weakly in the storm, lighting pools of dirty water. Between those lights, a small alien girl moved quietly, her thin cloak soaked through. Her name was Sira. She had nowhere to go. Her world had been destroyed in a war she never understood. Her parents were gone, her ship abandoned at the spaceport, and now she wandered among humans who turned their eyes away when they saw her glowing skin and frightened face. She hid beneath a cracked bridge near the river. The smell of oil and metal filled the air. Her stomach growled again, and she pressed her knees to her chest, trying to stay warm. Once she had lived in a bright city full of music. Now the only sound was thunder and the growl of cargo haulers flying overhead. She watched the water shimmer with blue light from the towers above, remembering the stars of her homeworld. Every night she whispered her mother's name before closing her eyes, hoping someone out there might still hear her. But no one came. The next morning, the city was alive with noise. Workers hurried to their shifts, traders shouted from stalls, and security drones buzzed through the air. Sira crept from the shadows, hoping to find food in the trash bins behind the market. Her hands trembled as she reached for a bruised piece of fruit, but a large man shouted, "Get away, alien," and threw a metal can at her. It hit the ground beside her foot, and she ran as fast as she could. The crowd parted with disgusted looks. She heard laughter, then silence as she turned into a narrow alley. Rain began again, cold and heavy. Sira pressed herself against a wall, breathing fast. She had done nothing wrong. But no one cared. The universe, it seemed, had no mercy for those born under the wrong stars. At the far end of the alley, a light flickered from an old workshop. The sign above the door read Cade Mechanics. Inside, a man in his early 30s was working on a half-broken delivery drone. His name was Eli Cade, a human mechanic who lived alone since the war ended. He had seen too much fighting, too much loss. His left arm was a metal replacement from the shoulder down, a reminder of the battles he wished to forget. When Sira stumbled past his open doorway, he almost ignored her. The city was full of desperate faces, but something made him stop. Maybe it was how she clutched her arms around herself, or how her pale eyes looked more tired than any child's should. "You okay out there?" He called. She froze, ready to run. The voice wasn't angry, only cautious. Eli wiped his hands and stepped closer. Rain dripped from her hair, tracing faint glowing lines down her neck. For a moment he thought he was seeing a ghost. Then he realized she was just cold and scared. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. "You look like you need a place to stay." Sira didn't answer. She didn't trust humans anymore. The last soldiers she met had dragged refugees away in cages. She had escaped through a sewer and had been alone ever since. Eli saw the fear in her eyes and sighed. "You can stay in here till the rain stops," he offered. "No tricks. No patrols." Her gaze flicked past him toward the warm light inside. After a long moment, she nodded. Eli stepped aside and let her in. The workshop smelled of oil, dust, and metal, but to Sira it felt like safety. Machines covered every table, drones, engines, and small robots in different stages of repair. He pulled a chair toward the heater and handed her a blanket. She sat down slowly, her glowing fingers trembling as she held it around her shoulders. "Name's Eli," he said while pouring hot water into a metal cup. "You got a name?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Sira." He smiled faintly. "That's a nice name." For a few minutes, neither spoke. The rain beat against the windows, but the small fire in the corner made the room warm. Sira's eyes followed the sparks dancing in the air. "You from off-world?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "Home? Gone." Eli looked down, understanding more than he said. He had seen refugee ships leave this planet full of survivors, leaving others behind when there wasn't enough room. He had hated himself for watching it happen. Now, sitting across from this small girl, that guilt came back stronger than ever. "You don't have to tell me more," he said. "You can rest here for tonight." Sira stared at him, trying to read his face. There was no threat, no anger, only quiet weariness. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe enough to breathe. When she finally fell asleep on the bench, Eli looked at her softly. The faint light from her skin glowed across his workshop, painting his tools in a gentle blue color. He had repaired machines all his life, but never people, and yet watching this small alien girl sleep, he felt something shift inside him, something that hadn't stirred in years. He whispered to himself, Maybe the galaxy hasn't gone completely cold. Outside, the storm grew stronger, but inside that old workshop, a fragile bond had formed, one between a broken man and a lost girl. Neither of them knew it yet, but this small act of kindness would change both of their lives forever. And for the first time in many nights, Sierra slept without fear, her dreams filled not with fire or loss, but with the quiet sound of rain tapping gently on the roof above her. When Sierra woke the next morning, the storm had stopped. Warm light filtered through the dusty windows of Eli's workshop. She sat up slowly, wrapped in the same blanket he had given her. The smell of oil and metal was everywhere, mixed with something new, food. Eli stood by a small cooking unit, stirring something in a pot. "Morning," he said without turning around. "Hope you like soup." "It's all I've got." Sierra blinked at him, unsure what to say. No one had spoken to her kindly in weeks. She looked around the room again, taking in the strange human tools and the half-built drones scattered across the tables. She touched a small metal bird with one glowing finger, amazed by its shape. Eli turned, holding out a steaming bowl. "Careful, it's hot." She hesitated before taking it. The warmth seeped into her cold hands. The soup was simple, but to her it tasted better than anything she could remember. He watched quietly as she ate, noticing how thin she was, how she chewed each bite slowly as if afraid it would vanish. "Been alone long?" he asked softly. Sierra paused. "Since Ship left," she said. Her voice was small but steady. Eli nodded. He didn't push for details. The war had scattered thousands of beings like her, refugees left behind by commanders and governments that no longer cared. He had seen it too many times. When she finished eating, she looked up at him. "Why help me?" He wiped his hands on a rag and gave a tired smile. "Because nobody else would. And I've had enough of looking the other way." Sierra lowered her gaze, unsure how to respond. Trust was hard for her. But something in Eli's voice felt honest. Something that made her chest ache in a way she hadn't felt since before the war. Later that day, Eli went back to fixing a drone engine while Sierra sat nearby, watching. He explained what each tool did, showing her how the circuits worked. She listened carefully, fascinated. Her people had known energy and song, not machines. But somehow she understood the rhythm of his work, the way he handled the tools with patience and care. At one point, a spark jumped from the machine, startling her. Her hand moved on instinct and a faint blue glow spread across her palm. The engine hummed and then came to life. Eli froze. "What did you just do?" Sierra pulled her hand back, frightened. "I didn't mean to." He raised a calming hand. "Hey, it's okay. You didn't break it. You fixed it." He looked closer at the machine. "You gave it power." Sierra stared at her glowing hand. "My kinda, we can share energy, but only small." Eli smiled with curiosity. "Well, that's one useful talent." For the first time, Sierra laughed softly, a small, shy sound that filled the quiet workshop with warmth. Days passed. The city outside remained cold and loud, but inside, the workshop became a tiny world of peace. Sierra cleaned the floor, helped organize tools, and even learned how to tighten screws on drones. Eli taught her how to solder wires, how to read simple circuit maps, and how to keep her glowing hands hidden when outsiders came near. Every evening, they ate together in silence. It was not awkward, and it was calm, the kind of silence that felt safe. Sierra started humming old songs from her homeworld while working, and Eli often stopped to listen, pretending to fix something so she wouldn't notice. One night, the lights flickered. Eli frowned and went outside to check the power generator. He didn't see the shadow watching from across the street, a patrol drone scanning for illegal off-world activity. Its red eye flickered, locking on the faint energy trace that came from Sierra's hidden glow inside the workshop. When Eli came back, he looked troubled. "Patrols are sweeping again. They're rounding up refugees. You need to stay out of sight." Sierra's heart raced. "They take us?" He nodded grimly. "Anyone not registered. And they don't bring people back." She stepped back, fear in her eyes. "You'll be in trouble." "I should go." Eli shook his head. "No, you're staying. I'm not turning you over to them." She didn't understand. "Why? You could be punished." He met her gaze firmly. "Because what they're doing is wrong, and I won't be part of it." The way he said it made her chest tighten. She had never heard a human speak like that before. Not with pity, but with quiet defiance. That night she couldn't sleep. She sat by the heater, watching Eli work on a damaged security drone. His metal arm moved with precision, each motion steady and practiced. She wondered how much pain he had endured. To survive. Humans, she realized, were not as fragile as her people once thought. They carried scars, yet still chose kindness. Before dawn, she walked up to him while he was half asleep at his workbench. "Eli," she whispered. "Thank you." He looked up, surprised. "For what?" "For not seeing me as a problem." He gave a faint smile. "You're not a problem, Sierra. You're just someone who needs a chance." Her glowing eyes softened.
"And you?"
He chuckled quietly. "Me? Maybe I need one too." The sound of his laughter stayed in her mind as she curled up again beneath her blanket. Outside, the first light of morning touched the rooftops. Inside, the workshop hummed quietly. Two lost souls beginning to rebuild something neither of them had expected to find. Hope. And for the first time since her world burned, Sierra dreamed not of fire or loss, but of building something new, with the human who had looked past her fear and given her back her name. The morning air in the lower city was heavy with smoke and dust. Sirens wailed in the distance, and the sky above Erivos 4 glowed a dull red from the factories that never stopped burning fuel. Sierra stood by the window of the small workshop, watching people hurry past on the street. None of them looked up. None of them cared. She had been living with Eli for nearly 2 weeks now. Each day she helped him fix drones, clean tools, and organize scraps of metal. She was learning fast. Her small hands were gentle but steady, and Eli often found her solving problems he hadn't even noticed. Still, he could see the worry behind her quiet eyes. That morning, as Eli tightened the bolts on a power core, he turned toward her. "You've been nervous lately," he said. "Something wrong?" Sierra hesitated, twisting the edge of her sleeve. "I heard people talk outside," she whispered. "They said soldiers are coming again. They search for—" "My kind." Eli frowned. "The Terran Patrol?" She nodded. "They take anyone without a tag. They say aliens bring trouble." He sighed and set the wrench down. "You're safe here, Sierra, I promise." But even as he said it, he wasn't sure. Patrol drones had been scanning every block for unregistered signals. The moment they detected her glowing energy, she would be taken away, or worse. Later that day, Eli went to the main market to trade spare parts. Sierra stayed behind, sweeping the floor. The heater hummed softly and the sound calmed her nerves. She tried to focus on her tasks, but something felt wrong. The air outside had grown too quiet. Then a sharp electronic buzz broke the silence. She froze. A shadow moved across the workshop wall, the shape of a hovering patrol drone. Its red scanner light flickered through the dusty window, sweeping back and forth. Sierra's heart raced. She ducked behind a crate, pulling the blanket tighter around her glowing skin. But the drone stopped outside the door, its sensors picking up faint traces of alien energy. It let out a shrill beep. The door slid open suddenly. A soldier in black armor stepped inside holding a scanner. His visor reflected the workshop lights. "Anyone here?" he called. His voice was cold and sharp. Sierra held her breath. The man's scanner beeped louder, guiding him closer to her hiding spot. Just then, the front door slammed open again. "Hey!" Eli's voice echoed across the room. He stood there, dirt-streaked and angry. "You got a warrant for barging in here?" The soldier turned. "Routine inspection. We detected off-world energy." Eli crossed his arms. "You mean the kind that comes from my tools? Half of this junk is from old war salvage. Maybe your system's confused." The man hesitated. His scanner light blinked uncertainly between Eli and the crates. Sierra stayed perfectly still, barely breathing. After a tense pause, the soldier lowered his scanner. "Keep your equipment registered. We'll be back for another check." When he finally left, Eli locked the door behind him and dropped his bag on the floor. "They're getting closer," he muttered. Then he looked at the crate. "You can come out now." Sierra slowly rose from her hiding spot, trembling. "He saw me?" Eli shook his head. "Not this time, but they will if we don't hide that glow." She looked at her hands, the faint blue light pulsing beneath her skin. "I can't stop it," she said softly. "It comes when I'm scared." Eli knelt beside her. "Then we make sure you've got nothing to be scared of." He thought for a moment, then opened a drawer full of old metal scraps. "I think I can build something. A small dampener to block your energy signal." She watched him work through the night. His metal arm moved with precision as sparks flew from his tools. She handed him screws and wires, eager to help. By morning, the device was ready, a small band lined with copper and sensors. "Here," Eli said. "Wear it on your wrist. It should hide your signature from their scanners." Sierra slipped it on carefully. When she touched the button, her glow dimmed until it was almost invisible. She gasped softly. "It works," Eli smiled. "Good. Now maybe you can walk outside without drawing attention." For the first time since arriving on Arevos 4, Sierra stepped beyond the workshop without fear. The air smelled of dust and fuel, but to her it was freedom. Eli walked beside her through the crowded streets. She watched children playing near the market and humans laughing over food stalls. Some looked at her curiously, but none saw what she really was. They stopped by the river bridge. The water was dark and full of oil streaks, but sunlight glimmered faintly on the surface. Sierra stared at it for a long time. "My people believe the stars live in rivers," she said quietly. "Maybe this one forgot how to shine." Eli leaned on the railing beside her. "Maybe. Or maybe it just needs someone to remind it." She looked at him and smiled. A small, gentle smile that reached her eyes. But far above the city, inside an orbital outpost, a technician noticed something strange on his monitor. For a few seconds, the sensors had picked up a faint trace of alien energy. Then it disappeared. He frowned and sent a report to his commander. By the time Sierra and Eli returned to the workshop, patrol ships were already being prepared for another sweep. Inside the small room, unaware of the danger coming closer, Eli fixed a new light over his workbench while Sierra hummed softly, her voice calm and sweet. It was the sound of peace in a place that rarely knew any, but outside the city was already whispering her name, the alien girl with glowing skin. And soon, that whisper would reach the wrong ears. The following days passed quietly, but the calm felt fragile, like glass that could break at any moment. The Terran patrols were increasing their sweeps, and Eli knew it was only a matter of time before someone came asking more questions. He tried not to show his worry to Sierra, but she could sense it in his voice and see it in the way his shoulders stayed tense when he worked. Sierra spent most of her time helping in the workshop. She had learned fast how to repair wiring, patch small engines, and even handle a welding torch under Eli's careful watch. But her true skill showed one afternoon when she tried to repair a damaged courier drone that wouldn't power on. Eli had given up on it days ago, saying the core was burnt beyond saving. Sierra sat cross-legged beside it, curious. She pressed her glowing fingertips to the cracked casing and closed her eyes. A soft hum filled the air, and faint blue lines spread from her hands into the drone's metal shell. When she opened her eyes again, the drone's lights blinked once, then fully powered on. It hovered shakily above the table, spinning in a slow circle. Eli nearly dropped his wrench. "How did you do that?" Sierra blinked in surprise. "I don't know, I just asked it to wake up." He stared at her, half in awe, half in disbelief. "That wasn't power. That was something else," she frowned, unsure how to explain. "My people use energy that lives inside us. It listens to feelings. My mother said it was ancient, from the stars themselves." Eli ran a hand through his hair, pacing slowly. "You mean you can bring machines to life just by touching them?" Sierra nodded shyly. "Only small ones. I used to help heal our ships when I was young." He smiled faintly, though worry touched his expression. "That explains why the scanners were picking up your energy. It's not just light. It's something strong, something the patrols would love to study." Her shoulders tensed at the word study. She knew what it meant. "They hurt people like me," she whispered. Eli knelt beside her, his metal arm clinking softly. "I won't let them touch you, but we need to understand what you can do. It might help us stay one step ahead." That evening, they worked together, testing her ability in secret. Eli connected a broken power regulator to a control board and asked her to focus on it. When she touched it, the dead circuits glowed faintly, but then shorted out again. He made notes while she rested, tired from the effort. "It's like your energy jumps straight into the machine," he said. "It bypasses everything, even dead circuits." Sierra smiled weakly. "My people called it the gift of the veins. It's in our blood." Eli nodded slowly. "Then your veins carry something far more valuable than you realize." Later that night, as Sierra slept on the small cot in the corner, Eli sat by the workbench, thinking. He had fought wars over technology that could barely power half of what she had just done with her hands. If the wrong people found her, they would tear the city apart to capture her. Outside, a storm rolled in again. Rain hammered the metal roof and the wind howled through the alley. Eli shut off the lights and went to check the generator behind the workshop. When he stepped out, he noticed a faint red light flickering from the sky, a drone scanning the neighborhood. He cursed under his breath and ran back inside. Sierra was already awake, sensing the change. "What is it?" "Shh." A whispered. "Patrol drone," he said, locking the door. "They're too close," she stood, fear flashing in her glowing eyes. "They will see me." Eli grabbed her wrist and switched on the dampener bracelet he had built. The glow on her skin faded instantly. "Not if we keep this on," he said.
"Stay quiet." The red light passed over the window.
The drone hovered for several seconds, its scanner sweeping across the workshop walls. Then just as quickly it moved on. Sierra exhaled shakily. "They almost found us." Eli nodded. "They will keep searching. The signal you made earlier probably caught someone's attention." She lowered her head. "I made trouble for you." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't. You saved a machine that was dead. Don't be ashamed of that." For a long moment she just looked at him. "You are different from other humans." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I just got tired of pretending not to care." As the storm quieted, they both sat near the small fire heater. Sierra held the broken drone in her lap, its lights glowing softly under her touch. She didn't speak, but her thoughts were full of worry. Every act of kindness from Eli made her want to protect him, too. The next morning, she woke before sunrise and found Eli asleep at the workbench, a half-finished circuit spread before him. She gently covered him with a blanket and smiled faintly. Then she noticed the data terminal beside him flashing with an incoming alert. Curious, she tapped the screen. Her breath caught. The message was marked classified, but one line was clear enough. "Unidentified energy signature detected near District 7. Possible remnant technology." "Deploy capture team District 7, that was them." Her heart pounded as she turned toward Eli. He stirred, opening one eye. "What's wrong?" "They're coming," she whispered. "They found us." Eli stood quickly, scanning the message. "We need to move, now." Outside, faint sirens began to wail. The city was waking, unaware that a storm far worse than rain was about to descend. Sierra looked back at the small workshop, the first place she had felt safe in months, and whispered softly, "Thank you." Eli grabbed his tool bag and met her eyes. "Don't thank me yet. We're not done fighting." And as the sun rose over the burning sky of Erebos 4, the two of them slipped into the shadows, running from the only home they had, straight toward the unknown that waited beyond the city walls. The city of Erebos 4 woke to chaos. Heavy ships thundered through the clouds, their engines shaking windows as they descended. Searchlights swept the alleys and rooftops while drones screamed across the skyline. The Terran patrol had arrived, and they were not here for routine inspection. Eli and Sierra ran through the narrow back streets, keeping low as the air filled with the sound of metal wings and sirens. The smell of smoke and burnt fuel burned in their lungs. Every few steps Eli glanced behind them, his metal arm tightening around his old rifle. "They're closing in from the north," he said breathlessly. "We need to get to the lower tunnels." Sierra's eyes glowed faintly beneath her hood, fear flickering in their depths. "They know I'm here. I can feel their scanners. They're calling my energy." Eli stopped for a second, grabbing her shoulders. "Listen to me. You can't panic now. We'll make it out. I promise." She looked at him, trembling. "Why help me, Eli? You could have left me behind." "Because I don't leave people behind," he said firmly. "Not again." They moved through the maze of old cargo yards until they reached an abandoned warehouse. The metal doors creaked as Eli forced them open, revealing rows of broken hover trucks and crates covered in dust. Inside, he activated a small light, setting it between them. Sierra sank to her knees, breathing heavily. "They will not stop. The ones who want me, they are not soldiers. They are from the company that built weapons with our crystal veins. They made my people slaves before the war." Eli froze. "You mean the Lothan Corporation?" She nodded. "Yes, they took the heart of my world. They used our energy to make engines of war." Eli clenched his fists. He had fought in that war. He had seen Lothan's ships tear through entire colonies. He had thought it was just another fight between alien empires, not built on the suffering of children like her. "Then we're not letting them take you again," he said. "I've got one last trick." He pulled open a large crate and uncovered his old combat armor, dented, scratched, but still functional. Its plating bore the marks of 100 battles. Sierra looked at it with wide eyes. You were a soldier, she whispered. Once, he said, strapping the armor on. Now I'm just someone trying to fix things I broke a long time ago. He handed her a small metal band. If things go bad, press this button. It'll send a burst that overloads scanners. It might give you a few seconds to run. What about you? Eli smiled faintly. I'll be right behind you. A loud crash echoed outside. Searchlights swept across the broken windows. The sound of boots hit the ground. The raid had begun. Stay behind me, he said, raising his rifle. The first wave came fast, black-armored troops with rifles humming with electric charge. Eli fired from behind a fallen crate, his shots bursting into bright sparks. The smell of ozone filled the air. Sierra covered her ears, trembling. She had seen battles before, but not like this, not this close. Eli, she cried as bullets struck the walls near him. I'm fine, he shouted back. Stay low. But there were too many of them. He tossed a flash grenade that filled the room with blinding white light. Go, out the side door. Sierra ran toward the back exit, but stopped when she saw him fall to one knee, clutching his side. A bolt had hit his armor. Without thinking, she turned back. Energy flickered under her skin as fear and anger surged together. Her glow burst to life, bright and pure, lighting the whole warehouse. The air hummed. Broken drones around them began to shake and lift into the air. The soldiers hesitated, shielding their eyes. Sierra raised her hands, and the floating machines roared to life, powered by the blue light from her veins. The drones turned toward the soldiers and fired bursts of blinding energy. Sparks flew. The attackers scattered. Eli looked up through the chaos, awe on his face. Sierra, she ran to him, helping him stand. We must go. Together they stumbled out the back and down into the maintenance tunnels beneath the street. The sound of battle faded behind them, replaced by the quiet hum of dripping water and distant thunder. After several minutes, they reached a hidden junction where Eli finally collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. His armor smoked from the hit he had taken. Sierra knelt beside him, pressing her glowing hand over the dent in his chest plate. Warm light spread across it, sealing the broken metal and soothing his wound underneath. He stared at her, stunned. You can heal too? She smiled faintly. Only a little. Enough to keep a promise, he laughed weakly. You're full of surprises. When they finally rested, Sierra spoke softly. You fought for me when you didn't have to. My people. They will never forget that. Eli looked at her, his voice low. Then help me make sure they can live free. No more cages. No more war, she nodded. I will. Above them, the city still burned. The Lothan gunship circled in fury, scanning the ground for their lost target. But deep below, hidden by steel and darkness, a bond had been forged in the fire. Between a human soldier who refused to abandon hope and an alien girl who carried the power of stars in her veins. Neither knew what waited ahead. But one thing was certain. They were no longer running just to survive. They were running to change everything. The tunnels beneath Erevo's forest stretched for miles, dark and silent except for the distant drip of water echoing off the stone. Sierra followed close behind Eli as they moved through the narrow passage, their footsteps splashing through puddles. The air was cold and smelled of rust and damp metal. Eli's armor had been patched up, but every step made him wince. He kept his rifle ready, though he knew they couldn't keep running forever. Sierra glanced at him, often worried. She could feel his strength fading even if he tried to hide it behind tired smiles. How far do these tunnels go? She asked quietly. Far enough, he said. They lead to the old cargo ports near the river. If we're lucky, we might find a ship that still flies. Sierra hesitated. And then? Then we get off this planet. I've got contacts, people who don't ask questions. She nodded, though her heart felt heavy. She didn't just want to escape. She wanted to find her people, the ones still lost beyond the stars. Hours passed. The dim light from Eli's wrist torch flickered across rusted pipes and broken signs. Once they heard voices, patrols searching above, and froze in silence until the sound faded. When they finally reached the end of the tunnel, a faint blue glow appeared ahead. They stepped out into a wide underground chamber filled with derelict ships. Most were broken beyond repair, their wings torn off and hulls corroded. But in the center stood a single vessel that looked different, old but intact. Its hull bore the faded markings of the old war fleet. Eli stared at it in disbelief. I know this ship, he murmured. It's a Falcon Mark IV, Haven't seen one of these since the siege of Titan Reach. Sierra touched the side of the ship, her fingers tracing the worn metal. Her glow brightened slightly. It still has life inside, she said softly. Sleeping. Waiting. Eli looked at her curiously. You can feel that? She nodded. The ship is like a heart with no pulse. Maybe I can wake it, Eli stepped back. Then let's find out. They climbed aboard through a side hatch. The interior smelled of dust and oil, but the structure was solid. The cockpit lights were dead and the power core was cold. Sierra placed her hands on the main console. Her blue veins shimmered brighter and a faint hum spread through the ship. Panels lit up one by one. The engines whined weakly, then roared to life. Dust blew from the vents as lights flickered on along the ceiling. Eli grinned. You just brought a ghost back to life. Sierra smiled too, though her hands trembled from the effort. It listens to me, she said. Machines, they understand when someone speaks with care. As the systems came online, Eli checked the flight logs. He found a partially erased data file. When he opened it, a holographic message flickered above the console. A map of star routes stretching far beyond human space. Sierra leaned closer, her eyes wide. Those stars, she whispered. That's where my people went. The survivors. Eli zoomed in on the coordinates. The Orion Belt, that's deep outside the Terran zones. Her voice shook with hope. We can reach them. He looked at her, then at the ship. Maybe we can. But the moment we launch, every scanner on this planet will light up. They'll know exactly where we are. Sierra straightened. Then we go fast, he chuckled softly. You sound like a pilot already. While Sierra rested, Eli prepared the ship for flight, refueling from old tanks, checking thrusters, and sealing the broken panels. Hours later, they were ready. The engines glowed softly, filling the chamber with a low hum. But before they could take off, an explosion rocked the ceiling above. Dust rained down. Voices shouted through the tunnels. They found us, Eli shouted, running to the controls. Sierra gripped the console. I can hold the ship's shields. The ground shook again as a gunship broke through the upper wall, firing blasts into the hangar. Eli slammed the controls, activating the engines. Hold on. The Falcon Mark IV lifted off just as the tunnel collapsed behind them. Flames chased the ship through the debris-filled chamber. Sierra focused her energy into the shield systems, her glow spreading through the cockpit. The blue light surrounded the ship like a living aura, deflecting each blast that came their way. They burst through the cracked ceiling and soared into the open sky. The city below burned with chaos, the lights of patrol ships chasing them through the clouds. Target lock, Eli yelled. Sierra reached out again, her voice trembling. No, not today. A shockwave of blue energy rippled from her hands. The enemy scanners went dark, their systems crashing all at once. Eli took the chance and pushed the thrusters to full power. The stars stretched ahead as the ship broke through the atmosphere. They left Erebos 4 behind, a world of dust, war and lost hope, and entered the quiet vastness of space. For a long time, neither spoke. The stars shimmered beyond the window, endless and bright. Finally, Sierra turned to him. You could have stayed. Why come with me? Eli smiled faintly. Because you reminded me what it means to care again. She looked at him, eyes soft. Then I won't let your kindness be forgotten. He leaned back, staring at the map still glowing before them. Let's go find your people, Sierra. Let's bring them home. As the Falcon Mark IV slipped into the darkness between stars, the last signal from Erebos 4 faded behind them. But somewhere, hidden deep in that silence, the faint echo of a promise remained. The promise of one human and one alien girl who refused to give up on hope, no matter how many galaxies stood between them and peace. The stars outside the cockpit stretched like silver rivers across the dark. The Falcon Mark IV flew silently through open space, carrying Eli and Sierra far from Erebos 4. The hum of the ship was calm now, almost peaceful. After so much fear and running, it felt strange to breathe without the sound of sirens behind them. Eli sat in the pilot's seat, scanning the star map that glowed faintly on the control panel. Sierra sat beside him, her hands folded in her lap. The soft blue light of her veins shimmered gently in the dim cabin, casting a calm glow on the walls. They had been traveling for days. Supplies were low, but hope was high. The coordinates they found, the ones hidden in the old data core, pointed toward a region deep in the Orion Belt. That was where Sira's people had gone into hiding after the war. "How much longer?" she asked softly. Eli smiled a little. "A few more jumps. The last stretch will be tricky. The wormhole between this sector and Orion is unstable." Sira tilted her head. "Wormhole?" He nodded. "It's like a tunnel through space. Saves time, but it can tear ships apart if you're not careful." She looked at him with quiet trust. "You will be careful," he chuckled. "I'll do my best." They shared a small meal, just ration bars and water, then watched the stars in silence. Sira's mind wandered. She thought about the home she'd lost, about the faces she could barely remember. "Do you think they'll remember me?" she asked suddenly. Eli looked at her. "They'll remember you because you survived, and because you never gave up." She smiled faintly. "You talk like a soldier again," he sighed. "Once you've seen what people are willing to destroy for power, you start valuing the ones who still believe in kindness." That night, Sira dreamed. She saw her world. Green skies, crystal towers, songs carried on the wind. Then fire! She woke suddenly, heart pounding, only to find Eli still at the controls watching the monitors. "We're close," he said. "The wormhole's ahead." Outside, a vast swirl of golden and blue light filled the viewport. It looked alive, like a spinning storm in the fabric of space. Energy arcs danced across its surface, beautiful but dangerous. Sira whispered, "It's like a living star." Eli checked the ship's systems, the reactors holding steady. "Once we enter, there's no turning back. You ready?" She nodded. "Yes." The Falcon moved forward, the light from the wormhole wrapping around it like liquid fire. The ship shook violently as the gravity pulled them in. Alarms screamed. Panels sparked. "Hold it steady," Eli shouted. Sira reached out, pressing her glowing hands against the console. Her energy flowed into the ship's core, merging with its systems. The engines roared louder, glowing blue like her veins. For a moment, everything went white. Then silence. When the light faded, they were through. Stars glittered across a new sky, bright, untouched, and peaceful. Ahead of them hung a massive fleet of crystalline ships, each one glowing softly like a fragment of a living world. Sira gasped. "My people." The comms crackled. A calm voice spoke in her language. "Unidentified vessel, identify yourself." Sira leaned forward. "This is Sira of the Veined Kin. I am home." There was silence on the line, then a reply filled with wonder. "Impossible. The lost child of Illyria returns." Tears welled in her eyes. "I thought I'd never see you again." Eli smiled quietly, relief flooding through him. "Looks like we made it." The alien fleet surrounded them gently, guiding their ship toward a massive crystalline station. As they docked, soft lights lit the hangar and several tall figures approached. They were like Sira, glowing veins, silver eyes, but older, regal. One of them stepped forward. "Sira," the figure said, voice trembling. "You are the daughter of our last leader. We believed you gone." Sira bowed her head. "I survived because a human helped me." She turned to Eli. "This is Eli Cade. Without him, I would have died." The alien leader looked at him curiously. "A human? Few would show mercy in these times." Eli shook his head. "Mercy's not weakness. It's what makes us human." The leader smiled faintly. "Then perhaps humanity has more strength than we thought." Over the next few days, the Veined Kin repaired the Falcon and offered Eli rest. Sira spent time among her people, relearning her language and her songs. Yet every evening she returned to the hangar to talk with Eli. One night, as they stood beneath the stars, she said softly, "They want me to stay. To help rebuild what was lost." He nodded. "You should. It's your home." She hesitated. "You could stay too." He smiled sadly. "This isn't my place. My fight's still out there, helping others like you." Her eyes glimmered with emotion. "Then promise me you'll come back one day." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small glowing crystal, a shard from her ship. "You gave this to me back on Erivos. Guess it's only fair I return it now." She closed his hand around it instead. "Keep it. It will guide you if you ever lose your way." When he finally left, the Veined Kin's ships formed an honor escort, lighting his path through the stars. As his vessel faded into the distance, Sira stood on the deck of her people's ship, watching the human who had changed her fate disappear into the endless dark. Years later, when peace spread across the colonies, the Veined Kin named their first alliance vessel the Cade, in honor of the man who had proven that courage and kindness could cross galaxies. And somewhere, Far beyond the Orion Belt, a lone human ship drifted quietly through the stars, carrying one man's quiet promise to never stop helping those who had no one else. Because, as Eli always said, no one deserves to be forgotten.